Welcome to Space Mysteries, your trusted source for breaking headlines, global insights, and sharp analysis from around the world. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Good morning. Today we're diving into a major story unfolding in Washington, one that's about power, money, and the future of the American economy. Former President Donald Trump recently proposed a sweeping new tariff plan, a tax on nearly all imported goods. The goal? Make foreign products more expensive, boost American manufacturing, and put U.S. workers first. Trump's supporters hailed it as a bold move to protect American jobs and industries. But the plan sparked immediate backlash, not just from other countries but from powerful interests at home. Critics argued it would raise prices, hurt consumers, and risk a global trade war. The real battle, though, wasn't just economic. It was constitutional. Could a president impose such broad tariffs without Congress's explicit approval? The question went all the way to the Supreme Court, setting up a historic showdown over presidential power. The court's decision would define the limits of executive authority in trade for generations. On July 30, 2025, the Supreme Court delivered its verdict, a ruling that sent shockwaves through Washington and across the country. This wasn't just about tariffs anymore. It was about who gets to shape America's economic destiny. Today, we break down what happened, why it matters, and what it means for you and the nation's future. The stakes, the balance of power between the president and Congress, and the rules of the global economy. The outcome, a legal drama that captivated the nation and set a precedent for years to come. The Supreme Court was asked to draw a line, one that would define presidential power in international trade. The decision's impact will be debated for years. We'll explain the ruling, its reasoning, and its consequences for American businesses and families. This is a turning point for U.S. trade policy and for the Constitution itself. Let's get started. To understand the Supreme Court's decision, we need to look at Trump's plan, at its core economic nationalism. Trump argued global trade weakened the U.S., pointing to lost factories and jobs. His solution, a 10% universal tariff on all imports with even higher rates for countries like China. The idea was simple: make foreign goods pricier, boost demand for American products, and bring jobs back home. Supporters saw it as a way to revive U.S. manufacturing and force better trade deals. The plan was sweeping, targeting nearly every imported good, not just specific industries. It was framed as both economic policy and national security, aiming to reduce reliance on foreign suppliers. Critics warned it would raise prices and risk retaliation, but backers called it necessary shock therapy. The proposal, detailed in the American Prosperity and Security Act, marked a sharp break from decades of free trade. Trump's team argued that depending on rivals for essentials like technology and medicine was a vulnerability. The plan promised to rewrite the rules of global commerce and put America in the driver's seat. But this bold vision immediately collided with powerful opposition at home and abroad. The debate wasn't just about economics, it was about who has the power to make such sweeping changes. The plan's scope set the stage for a constitutional battle. The question, can a president act alone or does Congress have the final say? That question would soon be answered at the highest court in the land. The stakes couldn't be higher. The country split into two camps as soon as the tariff plan was announced. Supporters, led by Trump, manufacturing unions, and industrial state voters, saw tariffs as a lifeline for American jobs. They envisioned a revitalized America, with factories humming and "Made in the USA" labels everywhere. They argued that short-term pain, like higher prices, was worth the long-term gain of a stronger manufacturing base. In Congress, economic nationalists pushed for broad presidential authority to act fast in a global economic war. Opponents included multinational corporations, retailers, and tech companies reliant on global supply chains. They warned tariffs would drive up costs, spark retaliation, and hurt consumers, possibly triggering a recession. Agricultural groups feared losing export markets, recalling past trade wars. Consumer advocates called the plan a tax on families, especially low-income households. Mainstream economists argued protectionism would ultimately harm the economy. The opposition quickly mobilized, preparing for a fight in both public opinion and the courts. The stage was set for a legal showdown. The battle lines were drawn. Legal action was swift. Business groups, led by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, sued to block the tariffs before they began. Their argument, Only Congress can regulate foreign commerce as stated in the Constitution's Commerce Clause. While Congress had delegated some tariff powers for emergencies, Trump's plan went far beyond any previous authority. The lawsuit claimed the executive branch was trying to rewrite trade law by decree. Lower courts sided with the business coalition, issuing an injunction to halt the plan. Judges found the scope of the tariffs unprecedented and a grave constitutional question about separation of powers. The administration appealed, but the D.C. Circuit upheld the injunction. With 2 losses, the government turned to the Supreme Court, seeking a final ruling. Both sides agreed the stakes were too high for uncertainty. The Supreme Court agreed to hear the case on an expedited basis. The nation braced for a historic confrontation over the limits of presidential power. All eyes turned to the 9 justices. The legal battle was on. The Supreme Court heard arguments in a packed chamber. The administration's lawyer cited past laws giving presidents tariff authority, arguing that national and economic security required swift executive action. She claimed foreign supply chains posed a threat and the president needed flexibility to respond. The justices pressed her. Where's the limit? Could any economic issue be declared a security threat? The government insisted this was a necessary evolution of presidential power. The business coalition's lawyer countered, "The Constitution gives Congress, not the president, the power to regulate trade." He argued that past delegations were narrow exceptions, not a blank check for sweeping tariffs. He warned that allowing this plan would erase a key part of Article 1. The justices questioned whether there was any precedent for such broad executive authority. The coalition's lawyer said no, only Congress can make such major economic decisions. The debate was fierce, but the core issue was clear: who gets to decide America's trade policy? The court prepared to make history. The nation waited for the Supreme Court's ruling. In a decisive 7-2 decision, the court struck down Trump's universal tariff plan. The majority opinion, by Chief Justice Roberts, was a strong defense of the separation of powers. The court ruled that while the president has authority in foreign policy, he cannot unilaterally rewrite economic laws. The Constitution gives Congress, not the president, the power to tax and regulate commerce. The majority rejected the argument that economic security justified sweeping executive action. Existing laws allowed targeted tariffs for specific threats, not a wholesale overhaul of trade policy. The ruling was a victory for the business coalition and a setback for the America First agenda. The dissent argued the president needed flexibility in a dangerous world, but the majority's view prevailed. The decision reaffirmed that major economic policies must go through Congress. The president can enforce trade laws, but only Congress can make them. The balance of power was clear. The court's reasoning rested on 2 pillars: the Constitution's text and the non-delegation doctrine. Article 1, Section 8 gives Congress, not the president, the power over foreign commerce and taxation. The justices emphasized that imposing a universal tariff is, in essence, a tax on Americans. Only Congress, directly accountable to voters, can make that choice. The non-delegation doctrine says Congress can't hand over its core powers without clear limits. The court found the administration's justification, economic security, was too vague and open-ended. If allowed, the president could act unilaterally on almost any economic issue. The court concluded, if Congress wants the president to have this power, it must pass a new law, explicitly. The ruling drew a firm line. The president can act only within authority clearly granted by Congress. This wasn't about whether tariffs are good or bad policy, it was about who gets to decide. The answer: Congress alone. The Supreme Court's decision has immediate, far-reaching consequences. For businesses, the threat of sudden sweeping tariffs is gone, bringing relief and stability. Retailers and consumers avoid massive price hikes, helping keep inflation in check. Exporters, especially farmers, are spared from likely retaliation and lost markets. Workers in import-reliant industries are protected from job losses, but those in manufacturing won't get the broad protection they hoped for. The ruling prevents a potential trade war and economic downturn. It signals that the U.S. remains committed to established global trading rules. Politically, the decision puts responsibility for trade policy squarely on Congress. Lawmakers must now debate and compromise on major economic shifts. The president can't act alone. Future tariffs require broad support in Congress. The system of checks and balances is reinforced. The debate over America's role in the global economy continues, but the rules are now clear. This saga was about more than tariffs. It was a test of the Constitution. Trump's plan aimed to reclaim American economic sovereignty, but it sparked fierce opposition and a historic legal fight. The Supreme Court's 7-2 decision didn't judge the wisdom of tariffs but clarified who holds the power. The answer, Congress, not the president, decides major trade policy. The ruling reaffirmed checks and balances at the heart of American government. For now, the threat of sweeping unilateral tariffs is gone, bringing stability to the economy. But the debate over trade, jobs, and America's place in the world is far from over. The court didn't end that debate, it clarified the rules. Major shifts in trade policy must be forged through legislative debate and compromise. The power to shape America's economic destiny rests with the representatives elected by the people. The Constitution's balance of power endures, and the story of America's role in the world continues.